Hello and welcome to my channel, iWinDeluze Gaming. The indefatigable Steambird reporter, Charlotte, has arrived as a playable character. In this video, we'll be doing a report on how good a Constellation 0 Charlotte is with the Favonius Codex. Breaking news! Local Fontanian news reporter caught tormenting and photographing baby seals to death. Charlotte is a 4-star cryo catalyst character and happens to be another cryo healer that is now available in Genshin Impact version 4.2. But before you write her off, like how she would write an article about herself harassing seals, Charlotte actually surprised me with how reasonably useful she can be. For this video, my Charlotte is using the Favonius Codex, with the 2-piece ocean-hued clam and the 2-piece emblem of severed fate. Now I know what many of you will be thinking, why aren't you using the tenacity or a 4-piece set bonus? Well, unfortunately I don't have a decent tenacity set for her, having crit rate, energy recharge, and attack percent. But this mishmash of pieces ended up working quite well. And for the teams that I'll be showcasing her with here, most of them don't benefit from the tenacity's buff. But do keep in mind that the tenacity is also a great artifact set to use with her. Anyway, my Charlotte is at Constellation 0 and her talents are at 9, 9, and 9. In this video, I'll be going through her entire kit, some team showcases, and finally, my surprising opinion on our favorite Steambird news reporter. Today, we observe how a local Fontanian news reporter conducts herself in the presence of other life forms. Here we are witnessing her normal attacks, cool color capture. The indefatigable nature of her photography is sure to annoy the sleeping fauna of Neuvillette. Fortunately, her antics are largely regarded as harmless. Up next is her elemental skill, framing freezing point composition. Her elemental skill is basically like a budget, disposable Kodak camera version of Nahida's elemental skill. It actually has 3 versions. A tap version, which tags stuff right in front of her, a small hold version, which will tag everything in a fairly small rectangle on the screen, but does have a maximum range, and a long hold version wherein you hold for a very long 2 seconds. This has a snazzy animation and tags stuff in a much larger rectangle. Tagged enemies will take a bit of cryo damage every 1.5 seconds, with the tap version and small hold version lasting for 6 seconds and thus ticking 4 times, and the long hold version lasting for 12 seconds and thus ticking 8 times. The initial hit has its own independent ICD and the ticks apply cryo every other tick. Tap and small hold generate 3 particles with a substantial 12-second cooldown, while the long hold generates 5 particles and has a very long 18-second cooldown. And last but not the least, we have her elemental burst, still photo, comprehensive confirmation. This burst is extremely flashy, and does a large full party heal with some follow-up small heals for the on-field character. In total, with this Favonius support build, it still healed the entire party for a very substantial 11,876 hit points, and provided Charlotte, who is on field, with 8 additional small healing ticks of 425 hit points, which total to 3,400 additional hit points healed to the on-field character. Some other properties of her burst is that it has the initial hit, followed up by 8 camera flashes to paparazzi her foes to death. The initial hit has its own independent ICD, and the follow-up flashes apply cryo once every 4 flashes. In total, her burst applies cryo 3 times. Charlotte has a couple of passives that feel largely unimpactful, unfortunately. Her first passive reduces her skill's cooldown when you kill marked enemies, which, if you're actually utilizing this, probably means that you're likely just beating up on trash monsters anyway. Her second passive provides her with a tiny bit more damage or healing percent bonus, depending on whether her teammates are from Fontaine. I do find it funny though, that her second passive implies that she's more combative towards foreigners. Now let's utilize her entire kit against the Regisvine in an epic duel to the death. Who will be left standing? Next up, it's time to talk about her teams. Now, upon initial analysis, Charlotte seems a bit disappointing and redundant with the current cast of healers. So I actually had to use my few brain cells remaining to come up with where she belongs in Genshin Impact's meta. But to talk about what team she's good in, we first need to understand what makes her special. As we can see, Charlotte is yet another cryo healer, which we already have 3 others. So what sets her apart from these other cryo healers? Well, for one, she provides a very quick full party heal. This already separates her from Chi-Chi and Diona. As for Mika, well, Charlotte will face some stiff competition from him, but she does have a key advantage over Mika. She actually applies a lot of cryo. So now that we've established that, what teams would appreciate a full party cryo healer that also applies a lot of cryo? The first team I wanted to show you guys is a Neuvillette plus Furina team. It's not a coincidence that Furina and Charlotte are on the same banner. If you think about the full team healing options that Neuvillette plus Furina have, Charlotte actually makes perfect sense here. Barbara would make it so you're running triple Hydro with Neuvillette, which is far from ideal for his draconic stacks. Jean and Sayu make it so you can't run Kazuha, who provides a much larger damage boost. That leaves Baizhu, Mika, and Charlotte as the only instant full party healers left. Honestly, if you have Baizhu, he might be the better choice here than Charlotte, but since most people don't have Baizhu, that leaves Mika and Charlotte. Between Mika and Charlotte, well, Mika's buffs are useless on Neuvillette, whereas Charlotte's persistent cryo application can freeze enemies reliably, which is also a very nice bonus for Neuvillette teams, and she also provides the invaluable healing the entire party for fanfare stacks for Furina. Yeah, I know, it's extremely niche and it had to be done through the process of elimination like this, but at this point, with overlapping roles like full party cryo healers, characters are becoming more and more niche. Another team where I believe she has a valuable niche in is with Wriothesley plus Furina. Wriothesley does appreciate having another cryo on the team for cryo resonance and additional cryo application for easier swirls. And Charlotte provides the much needed healing for such a team, since both Wriothesley and Furina are both actively trying to kill Wriothesley. Now unfortunately, she does face competition from Mika for this slot, as Mika does provide Wriothesley some valuable attack speed, so yeah, she's not quite as good of a fit for Wriothesley in comparison to Neuvillette. As for other teams, well, you can use her in teams where cryo is an inoffensive element. For example, for Dendrocore teams like Fridge, Hyperbloom, Urgin, Charlotte is a perfectly usable driver that also provides a lot of healing. In particular, I think Hyperbloom is the most comfortable option, and her high cryo application actually makes Hyperfridge more viable than it's ever been before, which is basically just freezing your opponents a lot while also using Hyperbloom. And lastly, Charlotte is just a decent healer to be paired with Furina in general. You can mix and match the last 2 slots as needed. Like for example, this Furina Sucrose Xingqiu team, where Charlotte is the driver and can freeze enemies. She also batteries the team and of course heals the whole party for fanfare stacks. And honestly, she does feel like an upgrade to this team when compared to Barbara. But she feels like a downgrade in comparison to Kokomi. Still, Charlotte does provide some actual utility in comparison to Barbara by freezing, and she also generates cryo particles for both herself and for the team as well. So yeah, Charlotte is another healer in the long list of healers that we already have. Thanks to Furina, I actually do think she fills some useful niches that the other healers don't necessarily provide. And if you're a newish player and pulled for Furina, honestly Charlotte will feel pretty good when paired with Furina, since you'll likely have Charlotte's Constellation 1, which also helps her heal significantly more. Overall, Charlotte feels a bit niche but surprisingly usable. My first impression when I just started making this video was honestly I thought she was really bad, as her damage output is a meme and she felt like most of the other healers. But after racking my mind and actually using her for a while, and coming up with like the Neuvillette example, and using her as a driver for Furina plus Xingqiu, I'm pleasantly surprised with her, and believe she can provide value to your account, especially if you're a newer or returning player that did also just get Furina. For longtime veterans though, it might be a bit harder to justify, as you might have options like Shenhe for Wriothesley, Kokomi for driving mono Hydro Furina teams, and an already built Mika for your other AoE cryo healing needs. Speaking of Mika, frankly you can use Mika in the aforementioned teams, but you do sacrifice cryo application, which again is useful for freezing enemies. However, Mika will provide significant attack speed buffs for other characters like Wanderer. Anyway, again, I was pleasantly surprised at how snappy, fun, and how reasonably useful Charlotte is. Let me know what teams you think she is best in down in the comments below. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Win to Lose, signing out.